Welcome to another manga recap. Just like all my previous videos, this video was heavily audio mixed for headphones. Use headphones for a better experience. Today's video will be about solo leveling. All the information about this manga will be pinned in the comment section. Without further ado, enjoy the video. Also, special thanks to my patrons. The passage that connects other dimensions to ours is called Gate. The dwellings of monsters, dungeons. And most important, the hunters, who are the people that are hunting the monsters. The dungeons were exactly what you would expect. Huge structures harboring monsters who were fighting adventurers. Some of them were using magic, while some of them tried to master the art of the sword. His name was Jin-Woo. He was a hunter. For today, he just had to do his best. But he was just a hunter that goes into the weakest dungeon. He was a rank E hunter. Shortly after entering the dungeon, he got hurt, so he had to be healed. The world's weakest hunter. If he wanted to pay his mother's medical bill, he just couldn't stop. But the hardest dungeon had been hidden within a rank E dungeon. It was what you'd call a double nest, and because of this, he ended up in a situation where he died. In the end, he just couldn't escape from death. He was alone, barely holding his sword, surrounded by monsters. One of the enemies raised his weapon, getting ready to kill him. He could just watch and anticipate the moment that life will leave his body. Even so, after all that, he woke up in a hospital. And even more, your daily quests have arrived. Do you accept? What in the world was going on? Daily quest: preparation to become stronger. Push-ups 0 out of 100. Sit-ups 0 out of 100. Squats 0 out of 100. Run 10 kilometers 0 out of 10. After that day, he received a new skill, a quest window that only he could see. Even more, if he would practice according to his daily quest and even hunt monsters, his level will rise. Just like that, it was time for him to fight. Without hesitating, he dashes towards the dragon. This time, he was the one holding the weapon. You have leveled up. He will rise from the weakest hunter to an S-rank hunter. This was happening in Seoul, South Korea. If you disregard his slightly abnormal strength and regeneration, it was even embarrassing to call himself a hunter. Of course, he was always getting hurt and even had a lot of near-death experiences. The job where your life's on the line, the hunter. He was not doing this because he enjoyed it. This time, it happened in a construction site in Seoul. Slowly but surely, a gate started to form. He can barely pay his sick mother's medical bills with what the hunter's guild pays him. For a normal person with no particular talent, he had no choice but to become a hunter. Before starting his daily raid, he wanted to buy some coffee. Without even enough time to enjoy his coffee, somebody calls out to his name. Waving at him, a guy was smiling, saying that it's been a while. His name was Buck, and what was he doing here? Didn't he leave because he didn't want to become a hunter? Well, his wife was pregnant with their second son. Laughing a bit, Kim agrees that there was nothing like a raid to earn a fortune. Even so, he was a bit worried. It's been so long that he might fall behind. His skill was already bad and it worsened after he took a break. In that moment, Kim noticed that Sung arrived. Everyone was friendly with him, telling him that he did a good job. Laughing it off, he said that it was nothing. He will be in their hands from today. The people around him even asked him if he ate yet. He replies that he did and thanks them for worrying about him. That man, was he a powerful hunter? Everyone was happy to see him. Kim laughs a bit, saying that he wouldn't know since he came right after he quit. His nickname was the world's weakest. The world's weakest, not the strongest. No, that's what they call S-rank hunters. Sung was considered to be the weakest of the weakest. After all, he was weak enough to get hurt in an E-rank dungeon. Really? He was that weak? Well, yes, he was probably the weakest of everyone. So that meant that their dungeon will be weak as well since he came, right? Indeed. Sadly, he was able to hear all of this. He goes to the shop to ask for a cup of coffee as well. Apologizing, the vendor says that the coffee ran out just now. Come on dude, not even a coffee? feels bad, man. The guy was really apologetic, but he said that it was fine. As a good wake-up call, somebody starts screaming at him. He was hurt again. Her name was Ju-hee and she was also attending the raid. She was, but that was not the problem. Why was his face hurt again? Laughing a bit, he says that he has no clue. It just happened while he was hunting. Really? What actually happened? Did he even go to the hospital? Well, yes, he did. They were in an E-rank dungeon and he was the only one who got hurt. An E-rank? How could that even happen? Well, the others were all higher ranked, so they didn't even bring a healer. Even so, they really didn't bring a healer just because they would be safe? It was okay, this was happening only because he was so weak. He was pretty much used to it at this point. Hearing all this, she didn't know how to reply. Well, looks like everyone was getting ready to go into the gate. They should go as well. A bit reluctant, the girl agrees. In that moment, somebody starts speaking to all the hunters that were there. They were off to go happy hunting, so he was not really qualified to say this. He would like to be the party leader for this raid. Was that alright with everyone? Well, Mr. Song, he was the highest ranked there, so they had no problem. More people agreed. If it was Mr. Song, they could trust him. It's been a while since he witnessed his skills. Everyone agreed. They were happy to participate. They were happy to be in his care as well. Alright, then it was time to enter the dungeon. She turns towards Song, telling him to try to not get injured and being left behind. Laughing it off, he agrees. And just like that, one by one, they entered the gate. He was going to try his best today. And just like that, the adventure began. Everything was clear, so it was just about time they left. What was he thinking about? Well, it was just about Hunter Sung Jin-Woo. He was a little bothered that he couldn't give him free coffee. Ah, the weakest hunter in the E rank category. What rank was this dungeon? They said it was about D rank. He's never seen Hunter Sung Jin-Woo uninjured his whole time in the Hunters Guild. A D rank dungeon, will he be alright? Inside the dungeon, he was already getting healed again. Why was he so adamant on working as a hunter? Fighting like this will only bring even more risks. She was very apologetic, but she was not saying this for an apology, she was just worried. While healing him, she was watching the other hunters from a distance. Just like I said before, some of them were using magic while the others were trying to master the art of the sword. Everyone was fighting. Well, on the bright side, the raid was almost over. He didn't know what to say, he could only watch her while she was healing him. After a while, he turns around to check out the other hunters. It looked like it was done. None of the hunters got hurt. This was a piece of cake. Seeing how easy this was for the rest of the hunters, he was quiet. The girl starts talking with him out of nowhere. Does he have a reason? Does he have a reason to not quit being a hunter? Laughing it off, he tells her that he's just a hunter for fun. If he doesn't do this, he might actually die from boredom. Telling her personal reasons will make him even more embarrassed. A bit annoyed, she says that it looks like having fun 2 times will send him raiding in the afterlife. When he starts laughing, she gets even more angry. This is what you get after killing a monster, the magical core. A magical core from even a C-ranked monster is worth thousands. However, since Jin was an E-ranked hunter, C-ranked monsters were impossible for him. He also had a shining magical core in his hand. After all his injuries and his troubles, he only earned a single E-ranked magical core. Considering he put his life on the line to earn this, it was way too small. Earning money like this was really exhausting. In the background, one of the guys started to wave at them, saying that there was another entrance. They slowly went to the pointed direction and indeed there it was, another entrance. The double layer, it looked like this was actually real. The same guy starts forming a small fireball in his palm. Without hesitating, he launches the fireball forwards. The spell kept going and going, lighting up the way. The tunnel was so long that the fireball ended up exploding. After a couple of seconds, the light faded away. After thinking for a while, he starts speaking with the rest of the hunters. The gate does not close if the boss was still alive. Since the gate was still open, it seemed like the boss was inside of there. Usually, they need to contact their guild and wait their orders, but everyone was looking at each other knowing what he was going to say. If the other hunters would get to it first, they would lose profit. So what he wanted was to go with all of them to kill the boss. Since this could be dangerous, why don't the 17 of them take a vote? And of course, there would be no complaining after the vote results. And just like that, people started to vote. Some wanted to fight, some didn't. The girl who was healing Jin didn't want to go. So it was 8-8 so far, huh? How about Mr. Sung? Everything depended on Jin's vote. He didn't have enough money. Soon he even needed to send his little sister to college. And even more, his sick mother. This was for his family. He wanted to go. Just one more time. They had to do this. After walking for a while, some of the party members thought that they were going too far. How long did they walk anyway? Well, about 40 minutes. The gate closes in an hour after they kill the boss, so they have about 20 minutes left. In the backline, Jin was apologizing. He was feeling guilty that he voted yes while she voted no. Without turning to him, she says that she's fine, so he had nothing to worry about her. Really? Was she really okay? To be honest, no, she was definitely not okay. Was he insane? Just now, if he would have been stabbed just a little above, he would have a hole in his heart. And that's not even considering his arms and legs, even though she barely managed to heal them. What even made him say yes? Did he also hurt his head? All of this was true, he was only alive because of her. After all, this girl was a B-ranked healer. Knowing that he was in her debt again, he starts to apologize. Seeing his reaction, she gets even more angry, but after a while she calms down a bit. If he was sorry, how about treating her to some food? There was no universe where he would expect this reaction. He blushes a bit and looks at her without saying anything. What, he doesn't like eating with her? Well, no, of course not. Before they manage to finish the conversation, they get interrupted. It was the boss room. They found the boss room. The party members were in awe. They never seen a boss room with this type of door before. All of this was really strange. Wasn't this place obviously dangerous? Well, it pretty much was. Even so, was he planning to return empty-handed after coming all the way there? They could be the first ones to enter the dungeon. Those who wanted to leave, they could go. He was going to enter even alone if he needed. Without hesitation, he starts to open the door. Well, at the end of the day, Mr. Song's skill was amazing. He was also extremely offensive styled out of all the Si-Ryeong hunters. That man, if he wasn't about to be 60, he could have been in any big guild. Since they came there because they trusted Mr. Song, they might as well follow him to the end. The door opened easier than he thought it would, so it was time to go in. A bright blue-yellow was covering the room. 2 torches were lit up, the lights were nice. Again, they've never seen a dungeon like this. Well, it was time to scatter and scout the area. Also, it seemed like no one has been there for a long time. Even more, those statues, they felt really weird. They are all holding something different, some of them are even holding instruments. There was quite a lot of them, it actually felt scary since there were so many. Also, Jin noticed that it almost felt like they were staring at you. Come on, they should stop saying such negative things. After walking a bit, they find the biggest statue out of all of them. That was not the boss, right? Probably not. It was only a statue after all. Well, that was true, but this was the only statue that was that huge. There was nothing that resembles a monster there, so what was going on exactly? While exploring the room, he noticed a magic seal. Before having enough time to inspect the seal, somebody calls out to his name. There was something written on one of the statues, so he better come and see for himself. This was written in runic text. Okay then, let's see. Cartenon Temple's commandments. First, worship the Lord. Second, praise the Lord. Before having enough time to hear all of them, the girl starts pointing to something. Third, prove your faith. The girl thought that one of the statue's eyeball just moved. It was looking at them. But while looking at the same statue again, it looked like she must have been mistaken. Wait, no, this feeling. It got so quiet that the air seems chilly. Those who do not follow these commandments will never return alive. The moment they read that, they suddenly hear a very loud noise. The door that was behind them just closed. People started to panic. Some of them couldn't stand this anymore. They wanted to leave. They were all spouting nonsense. It was a mistake to even come there. He was leaving. The boss, the treasures, whatever, they can have it all. While starting to open the door, he wishes them good luck. In that split of a second, Mr. Sung was the first one to notice what was going to happen. He yells at him, telling him to stop and not put his hands on the handle. The moment he touches the handles, he gets instantly obliterated. The once blue door got covered in a red shade of blood. The statue that was guarding the door decapitated him with just one swing. Its weapon was also full of blood. After killing him, the statue takes back its stance like nothing happened. Of course, seeing all this, everyone started to panic. That thing moves. There's no way that they need to fight all of the statues, right? Even the girl started screaming and got closer to Jin. If this happened, then at that moment when she saw the eyeball moving, terrified, Jin slowly turns towards the direction that the girl pointed. The statue was indeed looking right at them. It was pretty obvious that they were in grave danger. This wasn't the first time he encountered a near-death experience. During his first raid, he accidentally broke away from his party and got lost. He also got hit by an E-rank monster in the back and he was hospitalized for weeks. He even almost starved to death after being trapped inside of a dungeon. Even though they were all low-rank dungeons, he had to put his life on the line. Others trade their magical cores for better weapons to defeat stronger monsters and to earn even more treasure. Obviously, he can't do that. He is always unequipped. Buying a poor sword would just result in being destroyed quickly anyways. Also, having a healer would mean that his injuries would be healed anyways, given that they are not extremely serious. Of course, people started to talk about him being injured every time. He got so hurt in an E-rank dungeon, they felt bad for the healers raiding with him. They have to work twice as hard. And just like that, he earned his nickname of the weakest of the world. Meaning, even though he was a hunter, he was basically useless. All those days when he came out injured, he ignored their sneering remarks. He inefficiently worked a job that could result in his death. Maybe it was because of that he knew very well. Just like those situations, his life was in danger right now. Without wasting a moment, he quickly turns around, telling everyone to duck. He was fast enough to grab the attention of the rest of the party members. Not even a second later, the eyes of the statue start glowing harder and harder. He grabs the girl and pulls her to the ground just before the energy beam hit them. Saying that this was a close call is an understatement. The energy beam was so strong that it destroyed the ground itself. After a couple of seconds, it seemed like the statue stopped attacking. Recovering from the impact, the party members start talking with each other, checking if they're okay. Not everyone managed to dodge in time. A girl started screaming, seeing a hand on the ground. It was not just a few that died. He barely even dodged it. If Sung didn't yell, he would have died as well. Indeed, this time, Sung managed to save most of the party. Miss Ju was covering on the ground. She was having a panic attack. They instantly get ordered to not stand up. They should just remain in the same position. If they stand up, it will attack them again. Mr. Song was quick to analyze the situation. He tells Jin that Miss Ju can't handle fear that well. That was why she could only do basic raids even though she was a B-ranked healer. But here, it doesn't seem that basic, only those who moved died. All the people who lived listened to him. Talking about that, did he yell because he knew that would happen? Well, no, he did that only because he felt a very dangerous feeling. Before he manages to finish the sentence, he notices something concerning. His arm got obliterated. Smiling, trying to fight the pain, he says that he's fine as long as they will help him stop the bleeding. Quickly after, he asks Jin what rank does the statue look to him. He replies but saying that he has no idea. He's never been into a raid higher than D rank. He only experienced a B rank raid only once or twice. He could definitely say that that place exceeded those of the B rank dungeons. Even there were no monsters of that caliber. That one is most likely A rank, but after thinking for a while, he changes his mind. Maybe it was a S rank. Just now, there was the Cartenon temple's commandments. First, worship the Lord. Second, praise the Lord. Third, prove your faith. Those who do not follow these commands will never return alive. These were written on the stone. Hearing Hearing that, it was pretty obvious that the Lord was probably the statue. For now, the statue was not attacking them, but that didn't mean that the danger has passed. They had to find another way of getting out of this situation because killing all of them would also take too much time. The gate, the tunnel that connects the other world to them. 10 years ago, after the gate appeared, the world experienced many bizarre events. One main example were the hunters. Their strength stays the same from when they were awakened and it never changes. Him too became a hunter, but his strength was only enough for an E rank. Although he was stronger than most of humans, the difference between the other ranks and him was vast. Those who received the power to cross the gate and destroy monsters, the ones that did this as their career were called hunters. Sometimes, beyond the gate, there can be an ominous, despairing, insane monster that springs out of nowhere. A bit concerned, Jin asked him if he was fine. The bleeding was not stopping. Well, there was nothing they could do now, was it? He brought only 3 healers because he thought that this would be over quickly. One got attacked so brutally that they won't even find the remaining corpse. The second one was having a panic attack. Even a B rank healer like Ju probably never experienced anything like this before. That was the reason why receiving healing might be a little hard now. For now, it was better to just stay still and analyze the situation. When the situation clears a bit, they should try running, although it won't be easy. The rest of the party members started to panic as well. This was only a D-rank dungeon. Why was this happening? Just like Mr. Song said, they will get attacked if they move. Even if they somehow bypass them, they still have to go through the guard statue. He probably never intended for them to leave in the first place. One of the party members suddenly started to talk. He won't die like this. He finally joined a big guild, so he can't die there. What he planned was close to suicide, but the look in his eyes resembled nothing of sort. Mr. Song yells at him, telling him to not move. Even so, it was more than obvious that that was not his plan. He could do this. If anything, he was confident in his own speed. He will go through the door in an instant. And he was true to his words. The moment he started running, he disappeared from the spot. He was not even running, it was more of a jump towards the general direction of the door. In almost within 1 second, he reached the door. Just like he said, speed was his domain. Even with all of this, the statue wasn't going to just let him live. Jin and Mr. Song could only stay there and watch terrified. The guy who started to run got completely evaporated. The only thing that remained from his body were his legs. This was a clear demonstration that the statue had also speed and not just power. Still burning, his feet fall on the ground. This was another heavy blow for the mental of the party, who were already crying. Some of them couldn't even watch the scene and had to look away. This was so demeaning. Those guys could kill them whenever they felt like it. It would be easier than squashing a bug. They could wipe all of them in an instant, so why were they not doing so? Even if it could, it does not kill. It was different from the monsters who blindly attack hunters on sight. The guard statue that attacks when approaching the door. The large statue that shoots beams when you move. They attack in a pattern. Wait a second. A pattern. This all started to make sense. There was a rule in this room. He instantly turns towards the statue holding the commandments. The commandments of Cartenon. That had to be it. He quickly turns to Mr. Song to ask him what was the first commandment. The first commandment, well, that was to worship the Lord. This all started to make sense. The Lord. This could mean only one thing. There was a rule in this dungeon. Seeing that he was slowly raising up, Mr. Sang starts to panic. If he was correct, he wanted to test his theory. Mr. Song thought that he lost his mind, but then he saw the look on his face. Those were not the eyes of a man who seeks death. If he wasn't wrong, the statue won't attack those who move. Now it was time to test his theory. The moment he started to raise, the eyes of the statue started to glow. Seeing that, he instantly ducks down. Of course, everyone would be affected knowing that they were about a second away from dying. He starts to attack someone if they move past a certain height. He finally understood the meaning of the first commandment. He quickly turns around telling everyone that they need to bow down to the statue. First, the rest of the people didn't understand him, thinking that he's gone mad. Mr. Song realized that he figured something out, and indeed he did. The statue attacks you if you move past a certain height, and therefore it doesn't attack when you bow your head. Worship the Lord means to literally bow down and worship the Lord. So, in theory, if they bow down to him, they should be safe. Hearing all this, Mr. Song was impressed. This didn't come from just a gut feeling, right? It actually did, for now. Laughing a bit, Mr. Song agrees that there's nothing else they can do right now. And just like that, time started to pass while everyone was bowing down to the statue. After a while, everyone started to ask themselves if they will get to live. Could they finally get out of there? Could they survive this just by bowing to the statue? The girl was still very scared, but she was doing her best to endure the moment. Slowly but surely, the eyes of the statue started to glow. After more time has passed, it felt like they were standing there for hours. And after a couple of moments, there it was, the smile that broke the internet. The face of the statue formed the creepiest expression that you could ever imagine. Of course, everyone noticed this. His expression has changed. It was still looking at them smiling, and the eyes started to glow once again. They didn't even know how many people he attacked before, how many were still alive, how long, just how long do they have to do this? One of the party members starts to get up, saying that it looked like the statue stopped attacking, but it was obvious that most likely the statue will try to do something else now. Was everything going to be fine just because they bowed down to him? The same party member actually started to get up and the statue didn't attack him. He was sure that they should be safe now. The attacks have stopped. It was actually true, the statue wasn't doing anything. No way, it was really over. Seeing this, one by one, everybody starts to get up. The only one who was sure that it was not over yet was Jin. A sudden loud noise takes everyone by surprise. The statue was actually starting to get up. After a couple of moments, it even started to walk towards them. Seeing this, everyone started to panic. This meant that it was not over yet. Thinking that they will have to face him, everybody started to get concerned. Mr. Song turns towards Jin, asking him if he has any other ideas. Obviously, this situation was insane, so Jin didn't know what to reply. Silence took over the room while the statue was looking left and right, smiling. Even worse, getting closer and closer to them, it starts to raise its foot almost like it wanted to step on them. One step closer and the statue was almost right next to them. It was hard to even stand on your own feet because each step felt like an earthquake. In that moment, Jin realized that the dungeon has its own rules. The first was to worship the Lord, the second one was to praise the Lord. That has to be the key. Praise, what does that mean? Well, if it was praising, then he will give it a shot. He was a member of the church after all. If it was singing and praising, he's got this. Grabbing his cross, he starts speaking. While he started to recite a blessing, the statue was looking at him smiling. Make me anew and pour your graces. The weakness found within me, all will wash away. From the love of the Lord, your love holds on to me. While all this was happening, Jin was getting more and more concerned. Was it working? Well, it didn't look like he was moving slower. Jin was sure that this was not the right solution. The statue was looking even more menacing than before. While the guy was still praising, the statue moved its foot above him. He didn't even flinch. He had faith that he would survive this. Jin realized that this was basically praising the wrong god. Without hesitation, the statue stepped on him, killing him on spot. Of course, seeing this, the already scared party started to panic. At that point, everyone just started to run in any direction. Panic took over the room with everyone screaming and not knowing what they need to do now. While one of the girls was standing on the ground in total shock, the statue got closer to her as well. Just like with the guy who was praising, the statue just steps on her and kills her instantly. While Jin was running away with the girl, Mr. Song said that it was dangerous to group up. They had to separate for now. He knew that separating was better, but there was no way he could leave Miss Ju behind. The panic of the situation was starting to slowly get to everyone. He can't die there. He was finally determined to be a father, but what can he do about this? He runs away from the statue thinking that that should be a safe place. In that moment, somebody calls out to him saying that something was behind him. One moment of not paying attention to his surroundings cost him his life. With just one sword strike, he was perfectly cut in half. A second later, his body starts falling apart. A moment later, the statue raises its weapon, getting in the same pose that it was before. Praise the Lord. Just how in the world could they praise a god like him? That was not a god, that was the devil. Behind them are the guards, and in front of them is the colossal statue. They attack when they get close to them. An axe, a spear, a sword, a hammer, a flail, a bow, and an instrument. In that moment, a party member lost his arm. They can't get closer and they can't run. What should they do now? A second later, it clicked to him. An instrument. Do they attack with instruments as well? The guards only attack when you get too close. Once you do that, they move based on predetermined motions. If the statues holding instruments do that too as well, then everyone had to run towards the statues with the instruments. Without wasting a second, without asking why, everyone starts doing so. When they did, the statues started to sing. The statues holding the instruments don't attack, they had to find the ones with instruments. One by one, the party members started to find the statues. Even if they were safe for now, this was a bit too much for them. The mental of the party was ground zero. The floor was filled with blood and corpses, and they could do nothing about it. Jin was still holding Miss Ju while running away. After getting close to one of the statues, he noticed that it didn't start playing. The statue was not moving. Both of them started to panic, knowing that if the statue doesn't play, they are not safe. This could only mean that only one people can stay underneath a statue. When realizing this, she started to cry. Without hesitating, she tells her to stay there and he will find another statue. Seeing that he was running, the statue starts following him. After a couple of seconds, he noticed that one more statue holding an instrument was free. Just a little more, and he will be in a safe zone. Right as he thinks that, the foot of the statue was above his head. It barely misses him, slamming the ground so hard that it basically broke the floor. At that moment, Mr. Song yells at him, saying that that was not the right way. He realized it too late, it was not an instrument but a shield. In that moment, the statue holding the shield starts attacking Jin. The impact was so strong that the shield went into the ground. Thinking that Jin died as well, she was having a panic attack. Even so, he was not dead, he was wounded but he was alive. An instrument, he just needed to find an instrument. If there was truly a god, then please, life and death, he was holding onto a thread that kept him from dying. But now it felt like even that thread might break. She kept crawling and in the end one of the statues started to sing. It had no instrument in its hand, but it started to sing. Realizing how lucky he got, exhaustion took over him. With this last statue singing, it looked like the monster stopped moving. Just like before, blood and corpses filled the whole room. After everything was over, Miss Ju ran towards Jin asking if he was okay. She was completely shocked to see the state that he was in. Because of the pain and the adrenaline, he was a bit confused, not knowing what she was looking at. Looking down, a second later, it was all clear. His whole leg was gone. Just like all the corpses from the party members, his leg was now standing on the ground. Miss Ju was doing her best to heal his wound. She was even telling her that she could stop now. Of course, out of panic and pure adrenaline, she refused to do so. She promised that she was going to heal him. Even so, because she used way too much mana, she started to take damage as well. A second later, she starts coughing up blood. This was a terrible situation. Well, at least he survived. They started out with 17 and now there were only 6 of them left. Even more, from those 6, 2 of them were gravely injured. On top of the injury, it was the problem of exhaustion as well. It was unfortunate that he lost his arm, but this was all because he made a rash decision as a party leader. This was all his fault. He better wait for his punishment. In that moment, the statue starts walking again. This time it was with its back to them. In a total panic, everyone was watching its every move. The statue starts to slowly raise its arms. A second later, the ground started to shake. This felt like an earthquake, but a second later, a pillar started to come out of the ground. It was not a pillar, it was something that resembled an altar. They could only watch and hope that this next stage won't kill them. It was almost like the statue was telling them that they need to go to the altar. First, they looked at them without realizing what was going on. Jin was the first to realize that that was an altar. It was just like one of those from mythologies where they sacrificed living beings for their lord. Cows, pigs, sheep, children, virgins, etc. And the last commandment was prove your faith. This was probably the last trial. No matter how stupid he may be, he knew what was going on. This meant that they have to sacrifice someone. Was he right? Without hesitation, he points his sword towards Mr. Song. Who brought them there? He will be the one dying. Someone who bragged about his life with 2 kids was cleaved in half. Even more, 10 other people were killed as well. He agreed to take responsibility just now, right? This was the time to prove it. When Jin tried to protest, he yells at him, telling him to shut up and stay still. Mr. Song agrees that Mr. Kim was right. He must take responsibility. Even so, he wanted to go by himself, so please take that sword away from him. This was not his fault. They all voted to come there. By the end of the day, it was just cowardly to say that this was his fault. Step by step, he slowly reaches the altar. He takes a second to admire the complex symbols that were on the altar. A second later, a light appears behind him. Seeing this, the rest of the party understood that there was another meaning to the puzzle. He turns towards Jin, asking him if this was not what they were supposed to do. One flame. What does that even mean? Did he not want a sacrifice? All this time, Miss Ju was still trying to heal his wound. Out of the blue, he asked if someone could help him go to the altar. They had to go to the top of the altar. It will probably be fine. Step by step, they start walking towards Mr. Song. When they do so, just as Jin thought, 2 more flames start to burn. So that was how it was. Do they think that the other hunters will save them if they just stay there? Well, today was the 1 week mark after the gate was open. Even more, probably, the statues will start moving towards them before reinforcements will come. They neglected that gate because it was only a D rank. Well, nothing new from what the guild does. The gate opens up completely after 7 days. The monsters can come through the gate if it's completely open. Raids have the purpose of killing the boss and closing the gate before the 7 days limit. If they failed now, it could only mean that that monster could come to their world. Turning towards the rest of the members, Jin tells them that they should come there as well. For every person on the altar, a flame appeared. It also looked like the trial will only start when everybody was on there. Looking at each other, the rest of the party could only be impressed by Jin's deductions. When the last party members joined, the last flame started to burn as well. A split of a second later, something new happened. The circle that they were standing in got surrounded by blue flames. One by one, they started to burn until a complete circle was formed. In that moment, the doors suddenly start to move. After a couple of seconds, the doors are actually fully open. Of course, seeing this, everyone got startled. What was the meaning of this? The doors were completely open, but was this a trap or could they actually leave? The corpses that were filling the floor were a good reminder that something else might happen. In that moment, one of the blue lights faded away. Even more, one of the statues started to move. What could they do now? The statues were approaching them from all the directions. All of them started moving in the same time. And with this, another blue flame burned out. What in the world were they supposed to do? It didn't look like they could find a way to escape. Panicking, everyone started to look left and right. In that moment, some of the statues stopped walking. The moment he looked at the statue, it stopped moving. The moment he looked at another one, that one stopped moving. He quickly turns towards Miss Ju, telling her that she can't close her eyes. This was the same as the game they played when they were young. He was almost sure that the statues would start walking if they are not looking at them. Everyone had to not take their eyes off the statue or else they would die. When they did so, the statues actually stopped moving. Sadly, some of the party members were just too scared to look at the statues. Because of this, the statues got closer and closer. The girl, who had her eyes closed, suddenly started to scream. A second later, she starts running away. The moment she left the circle of the altar, one of the flames burned out. Even so, for some reason, the doors were still open. She got closer and closer to the point where she actually reached the door. Seeing that she was able to safely leave the room left everyone speechless. Of course, after that they tried to understand what was going on, how was she still alive. The door closed a little, but she went through the door. Even Jin was a bit confused. A blue flame disappears after a set amount of time. One of the red flames that appeared based on the number of people on the altar disappeared as well. The first commandment was to worship the Lord. The second one was to praise the Lord. All this time they thought that the open door was a trap, a false hope. When all the red flames appeared, the door opened. While it closes just a little every time a red flame disappears, the door will definitely close when all the red flames are gone. Prove your fate means that even in terror, in danger, with sweet temptations, you will keep your fate. Another party member, while trembling, apologizes to Jin. He didn't think that he could stay there any longer. After pushing Jin out of the way, he starts running towards the door as well. Jin could only watch in terror while he left the room. Just like before, he was able to leave the room and the door only slightly closed after him. Once again, seeing this, the rest of the party members started to get tempted as well. Jin turns towards them, telling them to not move. They can't have more people leaving. Any less people and they won't have enough people to look at all the statues. They will die. Mr. Song asked Jin what was happening. He wanted an explanation. He replies by saying that all they have to do is stay and look at the statues until the blue flame disappear. The blue flames were a timer. They will all be able to leave once they all disappear. Someone else tells him that he might be right, but couldn't the door just close completely when the blue flames run out? Was he certain that this was the meaning of the puzzle? To be honest, he never imagined that someone as weak as him could be so helpful. He always looked down at him, never really expecting anything from him, not even when he joined their party. A lot of people died when they entered the room, but the ones alive were all alive because of him. All because he managed to solve the riddles there. He was also alive because of him. With all these sweet words, Jin knew that he was probably going to run away. A second later, Jin could clearly hear the sound of a sword dropping on the ground. While crying, he tells him that he has a family, he doesn't want to die there. He was sorry, but he didn't think that he could stay there any longer. Apologizing once again, he starts walking away. Jin turns towards his direction, but it was too late. The flame was gone. With tears in his eyes, who could only see the guy running away. He had the nerve to thank him while running away? He doesn't have the right to thank him. Him running away is basically killing them. Him running away will 100% result in their deaths. Just like the previous times, the moment he left the room, the door slightly closed again. Mr. Song noticed it as well. The door was nearly closed now. It was too late now, but he finally understood what was happening. He tells them that they should all leave. The door won't close fully as long as there's at least one person on the altar. The two of them have many more years left to live, so he should be the one who stays behind. He turns to Miss Ju, asking her if she could help Mr. Song. She instantly agrees, but a second later she realizes that she couldn't stand up. Realizing what this means made her tremble in fear. Because she used way too much mana before, now she was way too fatigued to do anything. She slowly turns towards Jin, saying that her legs won't move. Mr. Song realized that this must be the mana exhaustion. She used way too much mana trying to heal Mr. Song. Without wasting a second, Jin tells Mr. Song to take Miss Ju and get out of there. He replies by saying that he would stay. Even so, then who would help Miss Ju get out of there? There was no time, they had to go. This was a tragic situation, but Mr. Song couldn't do anything about it. Of course, Miss Ju started to panic. This would mean that she was the reason why Jin died. Out of nowhere, he starts talking with her. He promised that he would buy her dinner, right? Giving her the only monster core that he had, he tells her to eat it first. He was going to get his payment from her when he will return. That's what he said, but it was pretty obvious that he will probably not return from this. She tries to tell him that this was not the time for jokes, but she suddenly gets hit from behind. Mr. Song picks her up, apologizing to Jin, saying that there wasn't any time left. He already knew that this had to be done. As his last words, he asked Mr. Song to take care of her. After that exchange, they start to slowly walk away. Jin could only stay there and watch them go while the door was starting to slowly close after them. Even if he knew that he was just probably going to die, he couldn't help but feel grateful. At least he was the only one who was going to die. He would have at least gotten an insurance if he knew that this would happen. While waiting for his death, he noticed the sword that was on the ground next to him. He slowly reaches for it and picks it up. Since it has come down to that, he was going to at least take one monster with him. With that said, the statues got closer and closer to him, getting ready to kill him. With blood covering all his face, he was getting ready to die. Raising his sword, he tells the monster to come. The moment he does that, the statue raises its lance and then hits him right through the abdomen. He stood no chance. He spits up blood while slowly dying away. The statue had no intention of showing mercy. After impaling him, the statue throws him away, slamming him onto the wall. After falling down, he ends up falling right on the altar. In his last moments of life, he realized that he doesn't want to die. Of course it was not fine. What does he mean he was thankful? All of them betrayed them. He had a family as well. He didn't want to die. Glad for being the only one dying there, he was just lying to himself. In the end, he was a liar. He didn't want to die. If only he had just one more chance. With that said, the statue finished him off. In that moment, the last blue flame faded away. In that split of a second, time stopped for a moment. The statues were not moving at all. Notification: you have completed all the necessary requirements of the secret quest Courage of the Weak. He wasn't sure if he was just seeing things because he was dying, but what was this? You have completed all the necessary requirements of the secret quest Courage of the Weak. He had no idea what was going on. What secret quest? Where was that sound even coming from? You have earned the right to become a player. Will you accept? Earned? Accept? What was going on? You do not have much time remaining. Please choose an option. If you refuse, your heart will be stopped approximately 0.002 seconds later. Do you accept? Wait, did that mean that if he accepts it, then he won't die? Then yes, of course, this chance, he will take it. Notification: welcome player. With that done, he could feel power surging through his body. The light was so bright that it made the statue look like it was crying. It became brighter and brighter until the room was gone. A second later, he opens his eyes and instantly gets up in a panic. He was in a hospital bed. He instantly grabs his chest, remembering the wound that he had in the dungeon. A dream? Was it a dream maybe? Looking at the window, he realized that he was indeed in a hospital. The moment he wakes up, two guys wearing suits enter the room, asking him if he was finally awoken. After asking about their identity, they apologize for surprising him. They were the Korean Hunter Guild's inspectors. Okay, so what do the inspectors want with him? With that exchange done, they start telling him what happened after he passed out. He learns that he was asleep for 3 whole days. More importantly, what happened with Miss Ju and Mr. Song? Were they safe? Well, yes, they were, but Hunter Song was missing an arm, and most likely this will impede his work from now on. Taking this in consideration, he might retire if he chooses so. Miss Ju was fine as well, but was still getting treated because of her trauma. It was uncertain if they will stay as hunters, and the other hunters like Sang-shik, no, it was fine, he only cared about Mr. Song and Miss Ju. The rest of them betrayed him and ran away with the cost of their lives. The number of people that survived the double layer was 6. Although hunters are in danger every time they hunt, it was rare for a massacre like this to occur. When the inspectors and the White Tiger Guild reached the scene, they were all gone. In that room, it was only him lying on the altar, no statues or anything the others described were found. Hearing this, he starts to panic. This couldn't be. Well, they couldn't believe it either, if the survivors' testimonies have differed just a little. Or if some of the body parts of the deceased would not have been found there, they would not have believed this theory. Even more, this was just another theory, but they believed that he received a double awakening. A double awakening, this was so rare. A hunter's stats are set when they receive the awakening or power. However, some hunters get awakened again after the first time. There have been cases with C ranks plowing directly to an A rank or an A rank shooting straight to an S rank. This was a magic power detector. All he had to do was place his hand on the mana crystal. If there actually were such death level monsters described by the survivors, normal hunters wouldn't cut it. Only by gathering A ranks and S ranks would the situation have been resolved. But all those monsters just disappeared. It was impossible to not suspect the possibility of Hunter Sung receiving a double awakening. After all, he was the only survivor left inside. However, his power level was a 10. At the end of the day, it looked like Thrash was trash through and through. Even the lowest E rank was at least a 70. When Jin asked what was the result, he replies by saying that it looks like they suspected him for no reason. He could only be disappointed and watch them leave the room. But what confused him was, why weren't those people aware of that? Could it be that they can't see it? He realized that his torn leg was still there and his impaled chest was back to normal. He couldn't tell what was the dream and what was reality. Should he have told them about it, that he could see that thing? Right when he was trying to interact with the notification, somebody barges in the room. It was his sister, and seeing what he was doing, she was concerned that he hit his head as well. Didn't she tell him to stop getting injured? Didn't he know how worried she was? The others all returned fine, so why was he always the one getting injured? While hearing her ranting, he couldn't believe that he almost left her behind. While she was talking with him, he suddenly gets another message on the notification board. He plainly asks his sister if she can see that. Of course, she had no clue what he was talking about. When there's an unread mail in a game, how would you read it? His sister really started to get concerned. He didn't really hurt his head, right? Well, he would have to open the mailbox first. Open the mailbox. Right as he says that, the message actually opens. Welcome player, daily quest preparing to become strong has arrived. After spending a bit of time with her brother, she decides that it was time for her to go. One of her friends was even waiting for her outside. Alarm! The system will help the player's growth. If he fails to obey the system orders, there may be a penalty. Your rewards have arrived. He couldn't really understand what all these messages were saying. Now that he was thinking about it, he remembers seeing something similar when he was left on the altar. Reading them all over again, he noticed something interesting. Preparing to become strong. He speaks out loud, check. When he does so, the mission expands. Push-ups 0 out of 100, curl-ups 0 out of 100, curl-ups 0 out of 100, squats 0 out of 100, running 0 out of 10 kilometers. Warning, failing to complete the daily quest will bring a punishment associated with the quest. Seeing all this, he starts laughing. This was a joke, right? Someone hospitalized doesn't even have the strength to do this. He was going to check back on this question again after he sleeps a bit. And just like that, he fell asleep. And it was not just a short power nap, he fell asleep. The timer for the quest slowly became yellow and then red and then it was almost close to 0. Alarm! You have not completed the daily quest. You are now heading towards the penalty zone for a certain period of time. The sound of the notification made him slowly wake up. The ground was shaking. Was this another earthquake? He raises his head in a panic and then realized that the bed was gone. It was plain as day that his hand was on top of sand. Even more, the hospital was gone. He was in a desert. This place was actually a desert, and even more, something was moving behind him. No way, it was actually all a dream. Before having enough time to finish his thought, he slowly turns around to see what was moving behind him. It was a poison-fanged giant sand centipede. His reaction could be described as bruh. Quest directions, penalty quest, survive, goal, survive until the time runs out. Time remaining 4 hours. And the centipede was going right towards him. Come on, this had to be a joke, right? You guessed it, it was no joke. He ran and ran and ran and ran. For every step he took, the centipede was right behind him. And it was not just one, the whole desert was infested with centipedes. Time remaining 7 seconds. The room that he was previously in was vacant, but that will change in just about 5 seconds. The problem was that in just about 5 seconds he was probably going to die as well. He turns around in a panic, realizing that the centipede was almost reaching him. You have completed the penalty quest. Just like that, after receiving the notification, he appeared back in the hospital room. You have completed the penalty quest. Penalty quest. He still had no idea what was going on. Your rewards for completing the penalty quest have arrived. Would you like to accept them? He was way too annoyed and exhausted to bother interacting with the system now, so he just falls to sleep. In that moment, one of the nurses enters the room and notices him. What in the world happened there? She quickly turns around asking for someone to help her. Jin was lying on the floor with sand everywhere around him. The next day, he was still in the hospital. The nurses were gossiping about Jin. They heard that he was a hunter. Well, yes, he's been running every day even though it was only a couple of days since he woke up. What did the doctor say? The doctor said that the hunters heal faster than normal people, so light exercises should be fine. Look, he was even running right now. If it was light exercise, right? Was he really okay? How many hours has he been running? It's been 4 days since he woke up and he found a few things. After finishing the running session, he stops to recover. First thing first, that thing in front of his eyes was not an illusion. Running 10 kilometers, complete, 10 out of 10. Although nobody else could see it, he could clearly see it in front of his eyes. You may choose one of the rewards below. 1. Status recovery. 2. Stats points plus 3. 3. Random loot box. The moment he accepts the status recovery, he instantly gets healed. Magic that can heal your fatigue after exercising. The fatigue that nested in his whole body actually disappeared as if it wasn't even there in the first place. Aside from that, there are also stat points and random box items. You can increase any one of your stat character stats as long as you have the points. He gets stronger if he will increase his character stats. Of course, increasing levels would do the same. Status, skills, items, inventory and item storage. It was just like a game, being controlled by some strange phenomenon. Laughing a bit, he couldn't believe that this was actually happening. He could even see his status window with all his stats. A little bit later, he was back in the hospital. He goes to the reception to ask if he could leave for today. I mean, it was fine, but where was he going? He has to take care of some business outside. After a while, he arrived at the Haebjang station? Haebjang? Is that how you read it? He was just standing in front of the station without going down the stairs. It was time to figure out what this thing did. This was from the random box that comes out every time he clears the daily quest. Although sometimes useless items like bandages and pens come out, these seem different. Dungeon key, a key that allows you to create an instant dungeon. You may use this in the third entrance of the Haebjang station. A key that can open an instant dungeon. Quest, the status window, rewards. Could it be that all of this was happening because of the double awakening, or perhaps a procedure towards the double awakening? In that case, it was worth trying it out. The world's weakest receiving a double awakening, huh? Other people would laugh if they heard it. He was confident in his running ability, so if something becomes too dangerous like last time, he will run away no matter what. I don't want to be that guy, but the guy who said that in the first dungeon ended up completely vaporized, so don't do that. He raises the key and opens a gate just like the description said. Initially, a small bright light appeared in front of him and it expanded and expanded in something bigger. The whole entrance of the station was now a portal. Hesitating a bit, he starts to slowly enter the portal. Alarm, you have entered the instant dungeon. Right after hearing that, he hears a sound behind him. The dungeon entrance was now closed. Realizing this, he started to panic. Out of nowhere, a girl watching her phone was right next to him. It appeared that she could freely walk out of the entrance. The explanation was clear as day. This was some other dimension. It was different from normal dungeons. He've never seen it before, but it should be similar to the Red Gate. What does he do now? He was planning to run away if something bad happened, but now he was kind of blocked. You actually can't leave unless you kill the boss. It was only a few days ago when he struggled with an E-rank monster and now he was supposed to clear all this dungeon by himself. Right as he says that, he could feel an unusual presence coming from the tunnel. He instantly turns around just to be sure. He was seriously expected to manage this without a party, and that presence he felt in the dungeon was getting closer and closer. With no other option, he started exploring the dungeon. This was the train station, but it was a version where everything was rusted and destroyed. Even the ceiling was almost falling over him. He really didn't know what to do. He was feeling less and less confident. He could feel a really strong stench. It must have been a beast monster. Right as he says that, the monster attacks him. It was some kind of a wolf. Luckily enough, because he was paying attention, he reacted in time, but the wolf was almost above him. With a split of a second to spare, he manages to dodge the attack. And even more, he jumped at a pretty long distance. It was a wolf, no, even more of that, it was a steel fang Raikan. Even though one or two goblins were already too much for him, could he actually win against this? The wolf was just watching him getting ready to strike again, and he was watching the wolf getting ready to dodge. In that moment, he realized something concerning. His leg was not moving. Why was this happening? Was it because he was scared? Was that it? He didn't think he had any serious traumas from back then. Right in that moment, the wolf starts charging at him, and in the last second, he manages to dodge the attack again. He didn't have a healer this time. He couldn't afford to get hurt now. Right as he says that, he barely manages an attack that would have killed him for sure. He instantly, elegantly dodges the wolf, and after doing so, he was surprised as well. He takes a second to recover, and then he realizes that his body was so light he could launch himself into the air only using his hands. He finishes the jump with an absolute perfect landing, but the wolf was already getting ready to bite him again. He barely got his life back, so does he think that he will cower in fear? Clenching his fist, he was sure that he won't die now. With one punch, he almost knocked out the wolf. I take it back, it was not almost, he knocked back the wolf, who landed right in a wall behind him. He was surprised by his own power. Could this be because he improved the strength stat? But even so, the enemy was still stronger than him. It didn't matter, he knew that now he had a chance, so he started charging towards the wolf. This time, he was the one attacking, but just as he thought, that won't do. Monsters aren't affected by normal attacks. Even this mob was stronger than him. With his mouth full of metal, the wolf was getting ready to bite him as well. What in the world could he do? This was too much for him alone. When the wolf attacks again, he barely misses the attack. This time he was not unscratched, he had some bite marks on his leg. Party members, helpers, equipment, he doesn't have any of those. What does he have that would allow him to be that monster? What he has is obviously his body. A weapon possessing magic power. If he only had a weapon. Wait a second, a weapon? In a split of a second, he opens the inventory and reaches his hand inside it. He didn't know why that was in there, but with one slash, he splits the head of the wolf in two. This was a one-shot kill. Now he had a sword. This was the blade that Mr. King Sang left behind in the double layer. Item: King Sang's steel blade. Type: sword, plus 10 attack. Alarm: you have defeated the Steel Fang Raikan. You leveled up. Didn't Mr. Kim Sang say that he bought this sword for 3 million won? So expensive. Usually he probably couldn't even afford to touch it, but he will use it for now. An inventory, huh? That was pretty useful. Could he store anything in there? Without enough time to finish his thought, something was approaching him again. Even so, since he has a weapon now, he was not afraid anymore. He tries to raise the sword just to realize that he couldn't. He realizes that the sword was stuck on the ground. He starts to panic because the wolves were closer and closer to him. Pulling with all his strength and screaming, he manages to unleash the blade. He strikes one of the wolves with everything he had, but the second wolf manages to catch the sword with its mouth. He was not called Steel Fang for nothing. He knew that he couldn't let Mr. Kim's sword to go to waste. After kicking the wolf in the abdomen, he uses the sword to just slice the wolf in two. The other wolf saw all of this happening. Now that he was thinking about it, these wolves, they were nothing when compared to those monsters. They were actually weak. The remaining wolf started to get scared, so he slowly backs away. This was pretty handy. Every time he levels up, every stat goes up by 1. Clearing the daily quest will give him 3 points. Leveling up means all his stats go up by 1, so he gets a total of 5 points. It looked like hunting monsters and leveling up was more efficient. Even more, how much stronger does he become per stat point? Even his intelligence and sense can be expressed in numbers. The easiest one to understand was strength. It was only raised by 10, but he could definitely feel the improvements. Could it be that his stats were weighted? Anyway, it was pretty obvious that he could just get stronger if he levels up. It seemed like even him could get stronger. Or was he overreacting just because he defeated 2 monsters? Even more, the wolves didn't drop magical cores. He thought that all monsters in a dungeon possess a magical core. It looked like this was a different species altogether. The strange phenomenon that occurred to him, if he was being controlled by the game system, there was a high chance that these instant dungeons and monsters were also specially created by the system. Maybe that's why they drop items and not magical cores. Item, Raikan's Fang, item class, none, type, junk. A large and sharp fang of a Raikan. You can keep it in your inventory or sell it in the store. A store? There was even a store in there. Simple enough, he could buy and sell items whenever he wanted. Alarm, your level is not high enough to buy from the store. It looked like new players couldn't use the function. Would you like to sell item Raikan's Fang? After selling it, he received 20 gold. He couldn't tell how much it was worth since it was not cash. Then again, that dungeon should be about an E rank. It was probably not worth that much. So what does he do now? He can't leave unless he kills the boss. He could leave if he got a return crystal, but he didn't know if that would happen. And before long, he would lose his supply of food as well. Even if the boss was an E rank, it was still too much for him to handle by himself. No, wait, shouldn't it be possible if he leveled up some more? Well, he could die before then. In that moment, he sensed the presence of enemies once again. It was the same wolf who left before. It was back. And even more, he brought the whole pack this time. There were about 10 wolves going right at him. He was on edge but not scared. There was nothing to be afraid of. After all, he's already died once before. Without wasting a second, the pack of wolves started to dash at him. Without fear, Jin dashes towards them as well. This was an all-out battle with both parties being confident in their skills. Getting closer to one of the wolves, with one wide swing, he slashes the wolf into 2 pieces, killing it on spot. Because of a moment of not paying attention, one of the wolves manages to bite him by the shoulder. Before the wolf had enough time to actually bite him, he throws it away. He was not going to die that easily. So, in return, all of them shouldn't die too easily either. Otherwise, he would feel sorry. Fiercely. He had to fight fiercely. He had to fight as much as his body could endure. Alarm, you have leveled up. He truly realized just now. Alarm, you have leveled up. If he quits there, he will get slaughtered. And just like that, with another wide swing, he kills another wolf. Alarm, you have leveled up. He was killing monsters left and right, but slowly he was being pushed back. Even so, if he dies there, he won't be able to protect the ones that he wants to protect. The corpses of the wolves started to slowly pile on the ground. Even so, more and more were attacking. It was almost like they were not ending. He will lose everything. He cannot stop now. He can't just keep his head down like a weakling. If he can become stronger, he will even follow those bullshit rules. And just like that, he dashes into the fight once again. Alarm, you have leveled up. The ceiling was full of blood. The floor was full of blood. The end of the fight, he was the one who was still standing. Of course, he was exhausted and out of breath. After finishing that fight, he started to aimlessly walk in the dungeon. A second later, exhausted, he could feel the presence of enemies once again. Just like the first time, a pack of steel-fanged Raikans was staring right at him. He takes a second to breathe and prepare for the fight that was about to come. The wolves were already ready to go. Exhausted and covered in blood, he knew that he had to do this fight as well. Alarm, you have earned the title Wolf Slayer. The problem was that it looked like the blade was now dull. In the end, a weapon will inevitably lose durability. Even if he would purchase a high-grade weapon, it becomes like that once he cycles through the dungeon a few times. There was one time when he purchased a dagger that costed more than 50,000 won. Although the hunting became way easier, the dagger broke way too easily in the boss fight. That day, he looted 3 E-class magic crystals. He still couldn't make ends meet, so he never bought a weapon again. Even if it was tiring, he chooses to take care of them one by one using his body. Smiling, he thanks the sword for helping until now. Thanks to it, it all worked out in the end. Title: Wolf Slayer, a title given to a hunter proficient in fighting against wolves. 40% increased experience against beast-type monsters. 34 wolf fangs, 2 worn daggers, traveler's claws, and a hearthstone. That was more than he was expecting. The most interesting item out of all of them was the hearthstone. Should he return using it, he takes a second to think about it. After a while, he decides that no, there was no guarantee that there will be another chance to become stronger that easily. What happens to this dungeon after he uses the hearthstone? Will it just disappear? If this was something like a limited event made by the system, it would be possible. At the end of the day, he was dancing in the palm of something he didn't know, like Wukong dancing in the palm of Buddha. Advance or retreat, he had to make a decision now. He decides to put the hearthstone back into his inventory and then he starts wandering the dungeon again. Alarm, you leveled up. Alarm, you leveled up. Every time he levels up, the fight against the monsters becomes a lot easier. You have slain Razorclaw Briga, you have slain Black Shadow Razan. He could definitely feel himself getting stronger. Because the monsters keep respawning unlike normal dungeons, they don't feel like living creatures. Therefore, fighting them feels like a game where their patterns are determined. If he could just learn the patterns, then the fight would become way much easier. He could also figure out where they were coming from. A monkey from above and a cat from each side. He gently spins his sword and then stabs the monkey right in the abdomen. With one swing of a strike, he finishes off the monkey and kills one of the cats as well. Without wasting any time, he turns to the second monkey and decapitates it with one swing as well. In a split of a second, he gets attacked by a Fang Raikan once again. Compared to the last time, he was not scared and he was focusing. With just one swing, he splits the monster into 2. This was getting easier and easier. He takes a second to breathe to recover and then looks at the corpse of the monster. He actually managed to perfectly split the monster into 2. The color of the name changes according to the monster's strength. White meant that it was weak. Orange meant that it was strong. Red meant that it was very strong. Since Raikans who were orange at first now were white, he's become quite a bit stronger. But with his current strength, he was not sure that he could beat the guy down there. He was getting goosebumps. Maybe it was because his sense stats have been increased as well, but he could feel it. He could feel that a strong monster was waiting for him down there. His level doesn't seem to be rising anymore. Also, his sword doesn't look like it will hold on any longer. Looking at the entrance, he starts walking away, but then he stops and slowly turns around. At the end, he decided to just go in and see what was going to happen. Was it just him, or do those stairs seem like they were longer? After a while, he noticed something unusual. Was this really the same station than before? He couldn't recognize the surroundings. The goosebumps became stronger and stronger and he realized that something was coming his way. The monster was so fast that he could barely see it coming. In the last split of a second, he manages to block the attack. The power of the attack was so strong that he was sent flying backwards. A second later, he slammed to the wall so hard that he started to puke out blood. He falls onto the ground and after a second, he realized that his sword broke as well. Without a weapon, now he was in grave danger. Even so, he starts to slowly get up. He thought that he leveled up quite a bit. Even so, his name was still Orange. Swamp's ruler, Blue Poison Fangs Rasakaj. Without wasting any second exposing its fangs, the snake was ready to attack again. Most likely, he was the boss of this place. Even if the sword was now shattered, he had to use it as a dagger. Just like he said, the name of the monster was Orange, so that meant he was probably weaker than it. The snake was closely watching its every move. A sword wasn't going to pierce those scales, and punches won't have any effect either. There was a second of quiet between the two of them getting ready to attack each other. A split of a second later, the snake dashes towards him with its mouth open. While dodging the snake and attacking it, he realized that he will need a super fast attack with a lot of weight behind it. At the same time, he has to weaken his defenses. That was cool and all, but how could he deal with those thick scales? A second later, he jumps into the air to dodge another attack, but without wasting a second, the snake tries to hit him again with his tail. This time, the snake was so fast that Jin didn't have enough time to dodge. His only option was to try to block the incoming attack with the shard remaining from the sword. While blocking the attack, he realized that he might die if that hits him directly. Even so, for now, he managed to repel the incoming attack. Even so, the snake wasn't going to just back down now, it was going to attack again. This time, it started to circle around Jin. He was basically being hit from left and right, behind and front. He couldn't react to this. Trying to recover from the hits he endured, he falls onto the ground. He thought that he got a bit stronger, but he was still lacking. How much stronger does he have to be to escape from his past as the weakest, the world's weakest hunter? Well, yes, that was right. There were rumors about him recently. Did he not know? Well, he kind of did. There seemed to be people who childishly enjoy do things like this. Since there were rumors, he should try to exert himself some more. And this is exactly what he was trying to do right now. Again, the attack of the snake was so strong that he was being pushed back. That nickname stuck because he was weak. Weakness wasn't something to brag about. He was well aware of just how weak he was. Strength, a pressuring force, squeezes your head. A pressuring force that can make you yield. But now, even false hypocrisy was not going to protect him. Whatever the opponent does, pure strength will overwhelm you. And fear will make your knees collapse and toes dig into the ground. He remembered the guy saying that he never imagined somebody as weak as him could be so helpful. He was being ignored because he was weak, or wise, or even receiving thanks. But in front of strength, all of this meant nothing. It was way too easy to get betrayed. He had to get stronger. That's the exact reason he came there. He came there to get stronger. Even so, once again, the snake manages to hit him with its tail, launching him into the wall. He takes a second to get up. His hands were trembling. His knees were weak. Even so, there was no trace of fear on his face. He had to become even stronger. Without hesitating, the snake followed up with another attack, but this time he manages to dodge it. Not yet. He wasn't going to die yet. Compared to that guy, compared to the fear he felt at that time. Right now, he was not scared at all. With this dodge, this time he managed to actually hurt the snake. It was not a dangerous wound, but he managed to peel off some of the scales. Realizing what was happening, the snake quickly turns around and tries to bite Jin, who barely dodges the attack. Out of nowhere, he decides to grab the snake by its neck and hold tight. He's put all his points into strength. If it was this much, he only had to hold on and not let go. Knowing what he wanted to do, the snake started to hit itself into the walls, trying to get rid of Jin. This proved to be very effective, but Jin wasn't going to let go. He was going to kill it. He gripped as hard as he could until the snake started to cough up blood. He was the one who was going to die. Jin was going to survive. Back at the hospital, people were asking about Jin. Has he not come back yet? Well, he didn't. He went out in the morning. So why wasn't he returning after the sunset? They couldn't be sure with hunters. They should stabilize him indoors. They say high-class hunters are rich, but lower-class hunters don't get much money, so it's kinda dangerous. He didn't know why they do that work. It was horrifying to see some of the conditions of the hunters that they carried in. He wondered, what do they do inside the dungeons? Their wounds were not normal. They come covered in blood, completely on another level from patients that get into accidents. It was amazing that they were still alive in that condition. Even so, it was a miracle that they are able to return alive from a dungeon. Not at all. Even the weakest hunters are strong compared to normal humans. They are all monsters themselves. Alarm! You have leveled up! You have leveled up! You have leveled up! Jin was so exhausted that he could barely breathe. Even so, a smile appeared on his face and he started laughing. At the end of the day, he guessed that he got a little bit stronger. Alarm! You have slain Swamp's ruler, Blue Poison Fangs Rasaka. Items received: Rasaka's Venom, item class A. Item type: Potion. Rasaka's Fang, item class C. Type: Dagger, attack plus 25. His clothes were ruined. The sword he just got was now broken. His body was aching a bit as well. But he obtained a better blade than the one from Mr. Kim Sang-shin. It was a dagger made from a fang, not bone. The attack stat was more than twice than his older dagger, and it also had a paralysis effect as well. Compared to that, this was a bit awkward to use. Drinking that potion would harden his skin but will weaken his strength. Anyways, he was going to store it for now. Alarm! The boss has been slain. The dungeon's interior will revert to normal. Right as he hears that alarm, the dungeon started to fade away. Slowly but surely, he realized that this was finally over. There he was at the same station that he initially entered the dungeon. Before he had enough time to see what the clock was, somebody calls out to him. When asked what happened, a soldier was a bit confused, but seeing his weapon, how did he come out of there? Didn't he hear the broadcast? A soldier. In that moment, the soldier realized that he could be a hunter. Well, that was right, he was a hunter, but without wasting time, the soldier interrupts him saying that he will make sure to guide him. Jin was not sure of what happened, but for now, he was just going to go with the flow. Cars were completely destroyed. Random monsters appeared into the city. It looked like a gate opened nearby. Did the monsters come over? Nearby monsters have been taken care of, leaving one big monster left. Maybe it was due to his sense that, but he could already feel it. He already knew the exact direction where the boss was. A very big lightning strike appeared into the general direction. That was the boss. It looked like the monster was some sort of a golem with an electricity element. Multiple hunters were already doing their best in order to try to kill this enemy. The military was trying to talk with the public in order to make them stop taking photos and leave the scene. What were the hunters doing? How long were they fighting for? They wished that they could just beat that thing already. It was such a mess and a lot of damage. What if the land value drops? It was pretty obvious that the public had no idea how hard this fight was. They were trying their best. What were all the damage dealers doing? It was not budging. Well, its defense was too high. Unfortunately, they don't have any magicians. Slowly but surely, the soldier and Jin arrived to the scene. Their ranks were too low, around 8 E ranked and a D rank. Since he was an A tank, he can't deal damage and it was going for a battle of attrition. The healers were 2 D rank and a 1... Wait a second, could that be? Was he not wrong? The hunters kept asking for healing over and over. After all, she was supposed to be a B-ranked healer. It was actually Miss Ju. She was doing her best to try to get over the trauma. Even if she was doing her best, hunters started to notice that she was spacing out. They didn't know what was with her, but of course we all know what happened. Whenever healing somebody, she had to close her eyes. Whenever she saw the face of a monster, she could only remember the horrifying face of the statue. She knew that if she was going to retreat, she won't be able to get back up. Even after a week, it looked like she still hasn't overcome it. Well, that was to be expected. He has to overcome it. Raising his sword, he got ready to put everything he had in one single throw. He takes a step back, getting ready to throw his sword. The boss was around the D rank. Compared to the boss he fought just then, this was a rank lower. If he can at least weaken his defense, they will be able to finish it off. He needs a blow that can pierce that stupid rock. Grabbing the sword as hard as he could, he was ready to finish this fight. That sword flew so fast that it basically became a projectile. The hunters knew that if this went on, they were all going to die. If a high-rank hunter doesn't come now, they were going to die. On a second look, they realized that the tank was going to die at this rate as well. What did he want them to do? Their magic was running out as well. Suddenly, the tank notices something unusual. The boss stopped moving. Even more, for some reason, it suddenly exploded. It worked. Their attack, it worked. The monster was collapsing. A bit more, they had to attack now, just a bit more. Surely, a second later, the monster falls down. They did it. They actually beat it. The A-rank tank was not so dumb to think like them. The attacks didn't work at all until a while ago, but it suddenly collapsed. No, their attacks did nothing. He was pretty sure that he saw something flying in. Was that what made the monster fall? What in the world blew the rock's head? He notices Jin's sword, a boss golem that could withstand attacks from 10 hunters. The same boss was defeated by that. Just who? Who in the world did this? Was he talking with a soldier? Well, he was. Did he see who threw this? Oh, of course, the hunter over there. Jin was gone. The soldier was a bit confused. There was a hunter right there a moment ago. That strength, that destructiveness, was he a high-ranked hunter? He didn't think it would fall in one hit. Was its health lower than he expected? Out of everyone, there was one single person who was not watching the monster because she was scared. It was Miss Ju, who now wasn't sure if she hallucinated or not. The next day, he was back in the hospital doing his exercises again. First, he did abs exercises and then he continued with push-ups. Right when he was doing that, the nurse happens to enter the room. Blushing a bit, she quickly apologizes for entering without knocking. Apologetic, she turns away saying that it was her bad. She was mesmerized. This patient. Was his body this chiseled when he came in? No, it wasn't. Bro looks like a completely different person, what the heck? So, was he being discharged today? Well, yes, he was. A bit shy, she lends him her phone, asking if she could have his number. His number? Well, yes, if he was okay with it. Of course, he didn't realize what she wanted, and he thought that it was a test result that they needed to send later maybe. Without hesitation, he says, okay, please wait a second. Back in their apartment, his sister finally arrived home. Right when she closes the door, she suddenly hears a noise behind her. It was Jin asking her if she was going to school. What? He was awake. It's been a while since he woke up. He just wanted to tell her to be careful of cars. She plainly asked him if he worked out. Well, a bit. His body was looking more toned and it looked like he's gotten taller. Do men still grow after they turn 20? Unimpressed, he tells her to stop talking nonsense and take her umbrella. She replies by saying that it didn't look like it will rain and also it was heavy. It was a folding umbrella, so it was not heavy, so she better stop making such a fuss about it. With a smile on his face, he waves at her while she leaves the room. After she left, he turns around to the app to see if he needs to do something else for today. The only goal that he didn't do was the sprint. His muscles grew. There was no way that his physical state changed after exercising for just a few weeks. It definitely meant that his status affected his body. Since he kept increasing his strength stat, his body probably was changing accordingly. Maybe he put too many points on strength. What will happen if he will keep all the points in strength? Hopefully not that. Even with high damage, it was not good without balance. The opposite was the same. Since the synergy between strength and agility was good, he will put some into that as well. Health was better the higher it gets, and it made sense and it was more useful than he imagined. Intelligence is the problem. It seemed to be related to magic, but does he need it? Well, at the end of the day, it should be fine. Before having time to go outside, his phone starts to ring. It was from the guild. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo speaking. At least he finally picked up. Why was he not answering the phone? Realizing that it was his landlord, he starts to apologize, saying that he got in an accident and was hospitalized. Well, anyways, he was calling because this month's rent was due. If he can't pay right now, should he delay his payment for a month? No, it was fine. He will pay right now. After that exchange, he closes the phone call. A double awakening. If he was really an awakened person, then he should be able to make money quickly. If he continues to grow at this rate, then soon he will be able to become a top rank hunter. Hunters kill monsters and make money. The higher the experience, the higher the rank. The higher the rank, the more money the magic crystal drops are worth. To beat a high rank monster, you need to enter through the gate with the same difficulty. So obviously there was a lot of competition for D rank gates or E rank gates. Because of that, E-ranked hunters aren't accepted by the guild, and even if they were, it wouldn't be easy to find a job. His guild's rank was E, and for him, who never experienced the gate above D rank, this was a harsh condition. People are chosen based on competence, and back then he could not escape from the title of the world's weakest hunter. Should he just get reviewed and raise his rank? But his awakening will become like a wildfire if it was revealed. The masses enjoy gossip and the hunters are a good subject. The pay might be better the more attention he gets, but malicious eyes will fall upon him as well. He can't reveal this until he was sure. A little later, he decides to go outside. It would be great if he could enter an attack force first. He randomly noticed a lot of hunters that were gathered up. Smiling, one hunter starts waving at him. His name was... I don't know how to pronounce that. What was his name again? Sung Jin-Woo. He was an E rank, correct? Hearing that, some of the hunters started to laugh. He knew him, he was pretty famous. His nickname was the world's weakest hunter. Hearing that, the other hunters started to laugh as well. The leader tells them to stop laughing. What was the most important thing was numbers. As said on the phone, it was going to be hard for him to fight since this was a C-rank gate. He was going to pay him 2 million won for filling up their member count, so this was a good deal, right? Well, pretty much. Then please sign the contract. For some reason, he was feeling uneasy. 5 C ranks, 4 that are lower than a D rank. There was a rule that when entering a C rank gate, there must be at least 10 or more people to enter the gate. Because of that, there are some cases where only numbers make up the attack force. While he was reading the paper, somebody starts talking with him. The reason was that they were both small fries. When he turns around, he sees a guy smiling at him, introducing himself. His name was Jin-Woo. He was 22 years old and his rank was D. He was called there as well under the same circumstances as him. Seeing his appearance, Jin was flabbergasted. What was up with all that flashy equipment? Was he the son of a millionaire? Then what should he do? Well, nothing much, just follow them and take care of their baggage. Inside, there are packed food, clothes and equipment and a first aid kit, just about everything. Were they going without a healer? Smiling, the guy says that it was hard to bring a healing hunter to a personal attack force. They always did it this way anyway. Force made out of only tanks and damage dealers. What a mess. By signing the paper, he accepts that he won't blame anyone else for any accidents inside the dungeon. There was no healer, so this was a bit hard to accept. Even so, the rest of the party members were eager to go in the gate. Smiling at him, the leader said that it was time that they went inside. The D-rank hunter tells him to stop worrying that much. Did he say that he was an E-rank? He was going to protect him. Ha ha ha, right. Without further ado, taking the baggage on his back, he got ready to enter the dungeon as well. And just like that, it was departure time. Again, it seemed like the construction was postponed recently. Well, the boss of the construction ran overseas with 9 billion won just 2 weeks ago. The workers and funders were having a great time. Okay, but why was he telling him that? Was that bag heavy? Will he be fine? Well, yes, he can carry it. Thanks to the strength stats, this was nothing to him. The guy told him that there was no need to be so formal. Was he normally this quiet? I mean, he wasn't quiet, maybe it was him who talks a bit too much. Laughing a bit, he asked if it bothered him by talking too much. People never actually really took notice of him. Being a hunter was his hobby. This was really annoying. A bit later, the leader tells them that they arrived at the destination. There it was, the gate right in front of them. This was pretty unusual, the entrance was pretty big. Was he sure that this was the C-rank gate? It was a bit big. What, was he saying that the guild was untrustworthy? He's seen people go in and out plenty of times. Even the D-rank noticed that the gate was a bit too big. Should they enter? Jin asks him if this was his first time. A gate size isn't that important. The important thing is the magical energy flowing from within. The guild determines the amount and quality of the energy and gives it a rank. A large guild takes care of gates above B rank, and C rank gates and lower aren't that dangerous. Although that was the case, this was his first time at a C rank gate as well. The party leader was heading in first, everyone else followed him. He had his sword and he had his shield. Without hesitating, he says yes and follows the party leader. Normally, D and E ranks like him don't make much money and they barely can spare to get their weapons and they can't even consider shields. Why does this D rank have such good equipment? It looked like this personal force must make a decent amount of money. Everyone was well equipped. It was pretty different from the D rank and E rank dungeons he's been in so far. Something was weird, it was way too dark. He tells one of the mages to light up the room. When after a second he does so, they see an unusual sight. What in the world was this? Why were there no monsters? Even weirder, there were no lights as well. It was normal for dungeons to have a few luminous stones. The D rank asks him if there are dungeons with no monsters, but then when Jin listens carefully, he notices something. It was pretty obvious what was going on. If there are no lights, then it means the monsters like darkness. It was not that there were none, it's that they haven't appeared yet. Normally, it's hard for monsters to live in dark dungeons, but if they are intelligent, that means that it might be possible that the monsters might not appear on sight. They might move in packs, live in darkness and charge towards the light. Wait a second, this sound. He yells at the rest of the party saying that it was an insect type monsters. An insect type? Could it be maybe an ant's nest? The sound was getting closer and closer and they couldn't even see them, there were way too many tunnels. Jin was the first to notice that the monsters were coming from above. And of course, he was right, they were closer and closer to them. The D-rank tells him to stay right next to him. A second later, the monsters appeared. They were right above them and there were so many of them. They had to use magic to get them off the ceiling. There were way too many. The mage instantly starts casting fire magic. A second later, the monsters came on the ground as well, trying to surround the party members. The tank of the party used some sort of taunt ability. All the insects seemed to be enraged and started dashing towards him. This was the time for the damage dealers to do something. Two of the party members dashed right into the monsters, killing monsters left and right. Jin was staying behind watching everything unfold. C-ranked hunters, their teamwork was pretty good. If it was this much, they could create a force with no healers. The leader was fulfilling his duty as well, and the damage dealers have good timing. They've probably been fighting together for some time now. Was it because they've always created a squad with no healer, but they were a bit rough? About Eugene, his equipment was good, so his lack of skill and experience were all cancelled out. Everyone was doing well, but in the meantime one of the ants got closer to Jin. With just one kick, he destroys the ant. This was a bit frustrating. Some minutes later, the floor was covered in bodies of the monsters. Were they going to head back after clearing out the entrance? This could take a while, so they should not exert themselves. Also, they had to take the magical crystals. They were splitting them among 9. This was their favorite part. The captain turns towards Jin, saying that he saved them. How did he know that the monsters would be coming from above? As expected, the sense that does more than what meets the eye. Of course, he couldn't say that, so he replied by saying he just felt it. The party leader said that his senses were pretty sharp. It was great that everyone was taken care of cleanly thanks to him. But it would be good if he didn't pay attention to small things like that. Huh? What does he mean by that? They noticed the ant that was killed by Jin. It was not a blade wound. They didn't inflict that, right? It's not from a burn magic either, so it seemed like they were beaten off. Also, there weren't just one of those, so it was like that before they started fighting? Were the monsters maybe fighting among themselves? This meant that there was a stronger monster, so they had to be careful. After a second of thinking, he started smiling. This smells like money. There was a very uneasy feeling among the party members. Maybe it was because of his senses, but he tells Jin that his sword and shield were expensive, right? Well, yes, his father took extra care after hearing that he was going on his first raid. He was not sure, but he should be worried. Worried? Why? He had a very bad feeling regarding the rest of the party members. Dungeon size varies, but not according to the rank. Depending on the circumstances, there are times when it takes weeks to analyze the interior, or times when it takes only a few hours to get to the boss room. This dungeon was laid out just like a maze, so there weren't many fights, but it took a while to move around. His job was the baggage carrier. He didn't really need to get involved in battles. To be able to earn money without fighting, he thought that it was a decent deal. Be aware of the lizards. This was an unexpected warning. He didn't know why this warning appeared. But looking towards the party members, one thing was certain. His bad premonitions were never wrong. After walking for a while, the party leader starts to talk. This was a grave. Quite a while has passed, but they still haven't found any monsters with limbs intact. They were only corpses everywhere. But there should be a boss as well, right? Well, if there was no boss, the gate would not have been open. Right when he says that, he stops walking and tells the mage to light up the room as well. A bit confused, he starts doing so. The room was filled by mummified bodies that were surrounded by spiderwebs. Of course, seeing this scared them a little bit. It was pretty obvious that this was the boss room. The tunnel kept going and going, almost like it was infinite. They had to get ready. It was time for action. Slowly but surely, they start exploring the cobweb tunnel. Some moments later, they realized that they hit a jackpot. It was full of mana crystals. How many were there? This was amazing. It was worth less than monsters drop crystals because it was low energy, but since there were so many, they should fetch a nice price. Just looking at them, they should fetch over 10 million won. If it was this much, probably even his younger brother would be jealous. One of the party members says that in this situation, he shouldn't talk so lightly about his brother. Deep in thought, he was talking with his brother. Just look at this, he was not always correct, ignoring him just because he obtained a high rank, and even ditching his country for America just because of money. He could tell that he was still being treated as a VIP in America and he was ignoring him. He better don't think of him as a brother that will grovel at his younger brother's knees. He will take advantage of this situation and increase his squad's manpower. What a haul, even dividing it to like 1 million won each. Suddenly, D-Rank Jin, and I'm saying this because both of them are called Jin, D-Rank Jin asked Jin for the contract he signed earlier. He wanted to check something. After doing so, he goes to the party members to ask them something. This was Jin-Woo's contract. As you could see, there was nothing about divining except for magical crystals from monsters. What was going on here? Wasn't it correct to divide the mana crystals among 10, not 9? The atmosphere in the room has changed. Even so, with a smile on his face, the party leader says that of course they will split it evenly. But there was something that they need to take care of before doing that. The boss room of course had a boss. This time, it just happened to be a giant spider. It was dangling on the ceiling above them, watching their every move. They should know all too well, but once the boss is defeated, the gate closes. Because of that, they must mine and transport the mana crystals before defeating the spider. Thankfully, it looked like the boss was sleeping, and it seemed like it was the best chance to move the crystals. He turns towards one of the party members, asking him if he brought the equipment. Laughing a bit, he says no, who would expect to be such a huge amount of mana crystals in a C-ranked dungeon? He left all the mining gear in the car. He was an idiot, didn't he tell him to make a habit of bringing it around with him? This was troublesome. The guy looked apologetic. Out of nowhere, the party leader apologizes and asks the two of them to guard the place. The rest of them will have to go and bring their equipment. What in the world was he saying? Was he telling them to stay by themselves in the boss room? It was fine, it was fine. He didn't think that it was the type to attack unless you enter its territory first. And it looked like it ate a lot, so it was sleeping right now. It should be okay for them as long as they don't provoke it. He said this was his first raid, right? And it was Sang Jin-Woo's first time in a C-rank dungeon as well. They just had to trust his words, he knew what he was talking about. With this response, D-Rank Jin didn't know what to say. Also, even more, he had something to say to the others as well, so they will go and have a smoke. After doing so, they will be back. By regulation, C-rank gates must be entered with at least 10 people. Except the two of them, the squad members are 8 people in total. He remembers saying that they never bring a healer to the dungeons. That meant that they've always entered C-rank gates like that, enough to tell him that they've always done it this way. The moment they leave the room, the party leader starts talking with one of the party members. Of course, there would be no need to fill up the 2 empty slots. Their plan was to block the boss room's entrance. Of course, this was no surprise to the rest of the party. The only one who was surprised was D-ranked Jin. An explosion took over the entrance of the boss room. He had no idea what was going on, he started to panic. The entrance was falling over, the ceiling was falling down, and now they were blocked. Jin already had a feeling that those bastards will do this. They were the lizards. In one of his previous gates, he remembers somebody talking about people being like lizards. It was a pretty dangerous job, accidents inside the dungeon were pretty common. And even if a crime occurred, it was hard to prove it, so they were common as well. There was no such thing as a CCTV that can be viewed from outside, so who could stop the hunters? Nobody could stop them. The weaker you are, the faster you get thrown away, but if you're strong, people will seek that strength. If they say you're useless or you get in the way, like a lizard leave its tail, you will get cut away. That's why he was telling him to be careful, since he was the world's weakest hunter. Back to the present, D-Rank Jin was starting to panic. Those sons of bitches tried to kill them. They were trying to kill them because of the mana crystals. He couldn't stop them anyway because they were already caught in the trap that they created. If they tried something, they were ready to strike them down anyway. Without hesitating, he drops the bags. In that moment, he remembered the name of the Si-Ryeong magician with the light. She blocked it off pretty well. Getting out isn't big of a problem, but the thing that woke due to the blast was the problem. The C-rank dungeon boss was now awoken and was getting ready to kill them. The monster in front of him was pretty powerful, but he was not afraid. Since they memorized the way getting out was a piece of cake, the plan was to go back after a rest. Was there any need to do this if they just killed them back there? He was an idiot. If they fought there and the spider woke up, would they be able to mine and move the mana crystals? With the world's weakest E-rank hunter and a D-rank hunter with absolutely no raid experience, it was impossible for them to beat the boss. After the spider beats them and goes back to sleep, they can take advantage of that and mine the mana crystals. If that doesn't work, they'll just have to kill the boss. But did he see his equipment? It looked like the sword and the shield alone would go for millions of won. If they can't bring all the mana crystals back, they can at least have that stuff. They wanted to find out which rich household he was from. They should at least take care of his funeral. Since the wall caused quite a stir, shouldn't the boss be quite angry right now? Out of nowhere, he asks him if he has the confidence to beat that monster on his own, which he replies, impossible. He didn't have much confidence either. A boss was a boss. No matter how hard they tried, the two low-ranked hunters could not make it out alive. Right as he said that, the boss was getting ready to attack them. Panicking, D-rank Jin tells Jin to get behind him, he'll think of something. Many eyes and hideous mouth, enormous size, long legs, and its strength was another level. This was a very unfavorable fight for the both of them. Wait, another level? What idiotic nonsense. Without hesitating, he tells D-rank Jin to stay there. Taking a weapon in his hand, he says that that monster is his. Seeing him, he starts to panic. What was he trying to do? Well, kill the monster. He was going to kill that thing. He was crazy. If you plan to beat a C-rank boss on your own, it's impossible unless you are in the elite of B rank or C rank. He had a chance to win the fight, but he knew that he was right. Even after reawakening, he was still weak. Though he wondered why. He wondered why he doesn't feel pressure that's enough to bring him down to his knees. The blue poison fangs Rasaka he met in the instant dungeon. That was strong for a boss on a level of a E rank. Possibly higher than a D rank. That golem boss was a D rank or lower. In comparison to them, this was unbelievably strong. It probably meant that he became strong enough to not become intimidated in the face of a C rank boss. He smiles a bit, and a second later, the monster roars at him, getting ready to attack. While the boss was rushing at him, he was analyzing everything. His current level was 18, a C-rank boss was doable. D-rank Jin started to scream, thinking that Jin will die, but then he got a surprise. Jin elegantly jumped on top of the monster, hitting it in multiple places. The monster screams in pain. His attack actually worked. Rasaka's fang was a pretty good weapon, wasn't it? He falls behind the monster, getting ready to attack again. The reason why a hunter is called a hunter was the reason that they had enough power to hunt down strong monsters. The real hunt begins now. Both the boss room and Jin were facing each other without a trace of fear on their mind. The only one who was intimidated by this was D-rank Jin. A second later, both of them dashed towards each other. His facial expression changed from scared to amazed to terrorized. There was no way that was an E-ranked hunter, right? I mean, he was right to be shocked. The fight was amazing. The spider lunges towards Jin, trying to hit it with its legs. He flawlessly dodges the attacks and then lands in a safety zone. One of the attacks that almost hit him forced him to use its weapon to block the attack. After successfully blocking it, he put some distance between him and the monster. Its skin was pretty thick. If he wanted to damage it with a dagger, he'll have to dig as deep as possible. Another attack from the spider was coming right at its way, and then Jin flawlessly dodges it again. It had no blind spots. A spider has 8 legs. It can easily punch through the floor or rocks. Each attack was threatening. He will have to take a bit of time to get close to it. In the rear line, D-rank Jin was just watching and not doing anything. What in the world was that person? An E-rank hunter? There was no way. But his submitted rank in the guild was definitely E-rank. Those movements were not of an E-ranker. Could he be that he was a false ranker? Among hunters, there are sometimes those who can control the presence of their magical power. If they want to, they can lower their rank in the evaluation. Hunters who conceal their presence of their power on purpose to get a low rank are usually called false rankers. The problem was that false rankers are usually psychopaths who kill as their hobby. And looking at Jin right now, he could believe that that was true. Their fight was so fast that you could only see after images everywhere. With just one attack, Jin was able to hit the spider in multiple places in the same time. He was in the zone, and D-rank Jin was terrified. Why did he say that he will come to that place? He was starting to regret this. How long has it been since he started fighting the boss? About 5 minutes? No, 10 minutes. His stamina was starting to slowly run out, and he didn't even deal a lot of damage. The higher the fatigue was, the lower his speed would become. He couldn't elongate that fight any longer. There was only one way to win. The dagger's special ability, he will inflict it on that guy. Effect, paralyze. Attacked foes have a chance to become unable to move. Effect, bleed. Attacked foes lose 1% of their health every 1 second. The basics of raiding was exploiting the weak points. The head was the natural weak point of all living creatures. The weakest parts of the head are the eyes. In that moment, the spider started to dash towards Jin, and he noticed something concerning. Venom. This time, the monster spit venom. I take it back, it was acid and it was so strong that it basically melted the floor. That guy was hiding his trump card. His time would run out if the fight would go on. He couldn't play a single bit around that guy. Then, faster. He has to close the distance with movements even faster than just now. Just a bit faster. Skill Sprint has been activated. Your movement will increase by 30%. From the perspective of the monster, he appeared right under it. D-rank Jin was impressed as well. He closed the distance in an instant. The dash was quickly followed by so many attacks from Jin. Effect Paralysis has activated. The enemy's resistance was too high. The effect was cancelled. He wanted to finish this as fast as possible, but he couldn't land a critical hit. In that moment, his fatigue level reached 61. A bit faster, just a bit faster. Even D-rank Jin noticed what he was trying to do, but his stamina will run out if this would continue. What will he do in this situation? And it was true, he was breathing harder and harder. Another attack from the spider barely misses him, and he dashes towards the monster. In that split of a second, the spider reacts faster than usual. His fatigue level was 70, so he would be hit this time. After barely blocking the attack, he was sent flying backwards right into a wall. The impact was so strong that he had to take a second to recover. The spider instantly followed up with another attack, trying to finish him off. In the last second, Jin opens his eyes and gets ready to dodge. In that moment, he remembered that in his daily quest, he did not accept the status recovery. This was his trump card. He accepts the status recovery, which sets his fatigue level to 0. He dodged so fast that the spider didn't know how to react. The monster could only see Jin getting closer and closer to it. In the end, Jin managed to stab the spider right in its eye. After looking at the monster for a second, he slashes the monster again and again and again. Effect Paralysis has been activated. He kept slashing and slashing and slashing, destroying all of its eyes. Effect Bleed has been activated. Effect Paralysis has been activated. Your foe will lose 1% health every 1 second. The fight was over. After a second, the body of the spider explodes with blood everywhere. The dungeon boss has been slain. While walking away from the monster, Jin got multiple notifications. You leveled up. You leveled up. You leveled up. Thank goodness that he didn't accept his daily quest reward earlier. If he did, he wasn't sure what would happen. D-rank Jin was in awe. There was no way he really took down the boss by himself. This person was definitely a false ranker. He starts talking with Jin. With a forced smile on his face, he asks if he would like him to take care of the bags. What was going on? Why was he calling him sir? He continues with, "Sir, you're thirsty, right? Please have this. It was water." He will mine the mana crystals for now that they were there. The equipment was obviously in the bag. What bad people. Jin was really concerned. Why was he like this? Maybe he just wanted to repay him. Right then, out of nowhere, the entrance explodes once again. It was the rest of the party. They were back. Jin knew that he would probably have to fight them as well. After the smoke from the explosion cleared out, they started approaching. You could clearly see the surprise and the confusion on the leader's face. What? Those guys were still alive and the boss was dead? What happened? Did they kill him by themselves? Was that spider just big and stupid? With that equipment, it was possible that he could take down a C-rank boss. If a D ranker and an E ranker beat it, that's all the evidence. In that moment, the leader thought that he underestimated D-rank Jin. There was no way that an E-ranker could be of any help, so he must have taken down that boss by himself. He didn't know what kind of special ability his equipment had, but it might be troublesome if they fight him as their enemy. So what do they now? Well, of course, they have to win him over. A second later, the leader starts speaking with D-rank Jin. He searched him up because his equipment was flashy and he turned out to be the son of someone great. Jin Architecture's chairman Myung-han. He was his father, right? He thought that he was the son of some rich family, but for it to be actually true, he wanted to talk something with his father. He will give him a chance if he kills Jin. Hearing this, D-rank Jin started to panic. What in the world was he talking about? He had to kill Jin and join their group. That was the only way that they will let him live. Otherwise, both of them will die by their hands. Why was he hesitating anyways? Nobody will know what happened inside the dungeon anyway. Or perhaps was he scared of an E-ranker? D-rank Jin quickly turns towards Jin, knowing that he was not just an E-ranker. He says that it was okay, it was a given that he will be betrayed because he was weak. Hearing this, D-rank Jin knew what he had to do. He turns around and faces the party. Seeing this, the party leader was a bit surprised. What was this? He was going to take his side and fight them. The mage asked them what should they do. Well, it was a bit of a waste to kill the son of a rich family, but they have to take care of the weak one first. A second later, he starts talking with them. Have they ever killed a human? D-rank Jin was a bit intimidated, but Jin was calm and collected. That was until he received a random emergency quest. An emergency quest has been issued. There are entities nearby with the intent to murder the player, slay them, and ensure your safety. If this quest is not completed, a penalty will be issued as the result. Enemies required to be killed, 8. Enemies killed, 0. What in the world was going on? The system suddenly changed. Right when he was thinking that, the mage started to cast magic towards him. Because he was not paying attention, Jin ended up being hit by the spell. The result of the impact was an explosion. D-rank Jin could just stand there and watch. For about the third time today, Jin was basically launched into the wall. The party was still trying to convince D-rank Jin to join them, telling him to not worry about him and come over there as well. D-rank Jin was scared and angry. They were murderers. It looked like he was passed out, even the system was blurry. He was losing conscience second by second. Just why? Why was this happening to him again? Curiosity turned into anger and anger turned into rage. Why did he forget that? This place focuses on the survival of the fittest more than anywhere else. His thinking was wrong until now. The many times he entered the dungeons. The many times he stepped past his limit. Injured, healed, and entering a dungeon again. He always mistook this place for a safe one. Those were enemies and the system was forcing him to murder. Kill if you don't want to be killed. Wouldn't it be awkward if he died? This wasn't a coincidence nor goodwill. This is what the system needs. What the system needed was a strong Sang Jin-Woo. He was not going to hesitate anymore. This was not going to make him strong. Seeing that, he stood up. The party members were a bit confused. How was he still alive? He saw that the system wanted him to be strong, so it was great that it was clear now. The system uses him and he uses the system. The other party members were laughing at the mage. Did he lose his skill? How embarrassing, he should be able to heal an E rank with one shot. Even the leader tells the mage that he should have done it more seriously. The mage agrees, a bit confused cause he knew that he put all his might into that magic attack. He put in a lot of magical energy, but how did it turn out this way? Was his aim off? They played around with a person's life, so was he ready to face the consequences? The party members were even more confused. What was that bastard saying? If they were hunters, he was saying that they should be ready to become hunted. Hearing this, the atmosphere in the room suddenly changed. One of the party members started to approach Jin, saying that he will take care of him. He gets even closer to him, saying that it looks like he didn't understand the situation very well. Out of nowhere, Jin takes out his weapon and puts it next to his throat. With just one slash, he decapitates the party member on spot. Both D-rank Jin and the party leader were surprised. Jin was completely unfazed. He was getting ready to kill everyone. The head of the party member was flying into the air, and by the moment he hit the ground, he was dead. Completely unfazed, Jin started counting. 1. Enemies required to be killed. 7. Enemies killed. 1. For the next couple of seconds, nobody knew how to react to this. That bastard, where did he even get the knife? No matter how unguarded, Jun was still a D ranker. How did an E ranker kill him? He ended up killing a person. He ended up killing an actual human. Although he could say that the system ordered him, it didn't change the fact that he killed someone. If he doesn't want to kill, he will be killed. He can't run away anymore. If only the strong will survive. In that moment, his past started to flash before his eyes. The moment he entered the gate the first time. The moment the party members were laughing at him. That time when the statue started to kill people. That moment when they realized that they might die. That one guy who finally joined a big guild so he couldn't die there, but in the end he died. The one who wanted to give it a shot at praising the Lord but he ended up squished. The girl who ended up in a panic attack and ended up dying as well. The one that got split into 2 even pieces. The party members betraying Mr. Song. The party members betraying him at the altar. The moment he could just helplessly watch them run away. The moment when he had the nerve to apologize and thank him before betraying him as well. The moment he was left alone at the altar. He was looking at his hands just like he was doing now. But this time he wasn't weak anymore. He was going to make sure that he won't die ever again. With that said, he made his mind that he had to kill the rest of the party. The leader didn't know what he just did, but they couldn't let their guard down. He orders the mage to give him one more blow. Without hesitating, the mage starts casting. He aims the spell right at Jin, but at the moment when he does so, Jin just disappears. He appears in front of him, saying that his magic was annoying. The next second, he cuts him into many pieces using his sword almost like cutting butter. The leader saw this as well. He knew that the situation was looking dire for them. Screaming in anger, 2 more party members dashed towards him. They were the damage dealers and they were going to make sure that he will die. He swings his sword with everything he had, but Jin disappeared in the exact moment. A second later, Jin appears behind him, stabbing him in the throat. The second party member tried to stab him as well, but Jin catches him by his hand and then kills him as well. After stabbing him in the abdomen, he instantly disappears, going towards the next party member. How was an E-rank moving like that? His attacks were not hitting, he was way too fast. If they are hunters, then why are they not trying to hunt? Hunters were made to hunt anyway. One of the party members that got injured by the sword could not move anymore. Effect paralysis has been activated. Magic. Was that magic? That son of a bitch, he could use magic. D-rank Jin already knew that he was strong, but he was still amazed. Even worse, it looked like he was way stronger than when he fought the dungeon boss. Effect bleed has activated. Effect paralysis has activated. Effect paralysis has been activated. One by one, the party members fell one after each other. His weapon was full of blood and now the floor was covered of bodies. The party leader was scared shitless. In a flash, all of their members were down. He was hiding his kills all along. Was it him who dispatched the dungeon boss? Enemies required to be killed. 1. Enemies killed. 7. He didn't expect all his members to be defeated. He will show him that not all C rankers are on the same level. A second later, he uses an ability called Empower. No matter how much of a monster he was, there was no way that he won't be tired after fighting a dungeon boss and 7 hunters. He couldn't break his defense by swinging a dagger with an exhausted body. A hunter specializing in agility and dexterity, he shouldn't have a skill that can pierce his empowered skill. He will be destroyed by the moment he hits him. In a split of a second, he appears right in front of him. He was strong indeed, but there was one thing that he didn't know. A split of a second later, Jin smashes his head into the ground so hard that it broke the floor. He was always leveling up ceaselessly. What in the world just happened? Did he just slam him into the ground? This guy, there was no way that he was an E ranker. Does that mean that he was a false ranker? Realizing that, the party leader starts to beg. He asks him to spare him. He will give him money in return. He could have all the mana crystals there and the magic crystals as well. 3 times. Was he asking for more forgiveness from someone he intended to kill 3 times? The party leader was starting to panic. Did he think that he will get away with this? Come on now, didn't he say that nobody knows what happens inside of a dungeon? Hearing this, he starts screaming. Does he even know who his little brother was? With just one swing of his dagger, the fight was over. Just like the first party member who died, his head started to fly. A second later, his body drops on the floor. His clothes became a mess again. The size wasn't matching anymore, so it was time that he bought a few new clothes. B-rank Jin was puking. He slowly turned towards Jin, looking like he was almost dead. Jin was calm and collected, looking at him. The boss dungeon was defeated and the dungeon was closing. It was time that they should leave. Quest reward, emergency quest, kill the enemies. Completion conditions have all been met. Will you receive the reward? You may choose one of the rewards below. Reward 1, status recovery. Reward 2, experience points plus 10. Reward 3, skill, bloodlust. Bloodlust. Using a strong energy, the selected target is put in a state of fear for 1 minute. Several targets can be selected. Effect fear, all stats minus 50%. Somewhere in Washington, USA. This was a great morning. What time was in Korea? Did he have a bad dream? His eyes were wet. This was unusual. Here we are at the end of this video. First question first, will I do the next part? If you could give this video some love and I'll see some nice numbers, I will definitely do another video. If you like this manga, consider watching the Pick Me Up series that is uploaded on my channel. Also, consider supporting the channel by subscribing to my Patreon page or just to the channel. That's it for now, see you next time.